Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the live game review. Everton 0, Wolves 1 at Goodison Park. Another defeat for Everton on Sunday. Another defeat for Frank Lampard's Everton side. And another game goes by, another must-win game goes by without Everton picking up any points and further piling pressure onto Thursday's game against Newcastle United at Goodison. Yeah, another really disappointing afternoon, wasn't it, for us Evertonians. I think a lot of us went into this game hoping that we'd see a reaction. Obviously, an absolutely embarrassing defeat to Tottenham Hotspur last Monday, was in a performance in which we almost needed to show, a reaction and improvement in the game against Wolves on Sunday. And I think a lot of Blues went into this game confident, not only because again we'd come back off the back of a bad defeat and needed to show a reaction, but also because it was at Goodison Park, and there's been a lot of discussion recently about how much better we are at Goodison Park than we are away from home, and I don't think there's any doubt in that we're better at Goodison than what we are away from home, but there's certainly massive doubts as to whether or not we're a good footballing team. In fact, we're not a good footballing team. There's no doubt about that whatsoever, whether we play at Goodison or whether we play away from home. The minute we come up against a semi-decent footballing team, we absolutely fall to shit because we're a dreadful football team. I said it in the instant match reaction and I'll say it again here. We are just awful at football. The fact that these players show very little desire, they show very little effort, they show very little determination, they show very little passion, they show very little desire. That is all just sort of, that's almost like we're already, down on the floor, and that's like the little kicks and punches in the face while we're already down. But the thing that's putting us on the floor in the first place is the fact that these players are just utter shite. They're absolutely garbage. And I think that becomes evident in games like Sunday, where we're all going into it thinking, right, it's a home game. We've already identified that the home games are going to be the games that we need to pick up the points in. I said a couple of weeks ago, and I stand by it, I don't think we'll pick up a single point away from home between now and the end of the season. But I said the games are Goodison when the crowd's up for it and the players are reacting to the crowd, and then players might give that extra 10-15% on top of what they'd usually give. We might get something out of. But what I failed to overlook was the games that Frank Lampard has managed so far as Everton manager at Goodison Park, with the exception of the Manchester City game, which was a good performance and a game in which we deserved more out of. We still lost that game, by the way. The games in which he's managed at Goodison Park, the games in which we've won, we've played Boreham Wood, who were a Sunday League team, let's be perfectly honest. We've played Leeds, who were absolutely dreadful at the time and had been absolutely dreadful for some time, and Brentford, who aren't a very good footballing team either. And Dan James of Leeds even come out and said after the game that they effectively lost the game because of the fans and the effect that the Goodison crowd had on the Everton players. But we were yet to play, again, other than Manchester City, and I understand that we put in a good performance against Manchester City, and we often do. We often turn up against teams like Man City at Goodison and give absolutely everything, and in those one-off games we'll look much better than what we realistically are, because let's be honest, that Manchester City performance wasn't a reflection on how good of a football team Everton actually are. In fact, it was one of those one-off days where we looked really good, but in reality, over the stretch period of time, we're absolutely shite, and we won't put that in performance in again, probably for the rest of the season. And as I said, other than that game, we hadn't really played anybody that was going to come to Goodison and challenge us. We hadn't really played even a semi-decent team at Goodison. We know away from home we're absolutely abysmal. A loss to Southampton in a disgraceful manner. A Southampton team that lost at the weekend to Leeds, who again looked absolutely down and out until the weekend. We lost to a Newcastle team who at the time weren't particularly in great form, and that sort of kick-started their run of form. And we lost to Tottenham, who aren't a particularly great team either, and we made them look like Barcelona. So we know away from home we're a shambles, but there was this sort of, I think, feeling almost of, well, at home we're much better because we'd beaten Leeds, because we'd beaten Brentford, because we'd beaten Boreham Wood. And the reality is we hadn't really played anyone half decent, bar in the Manchester City game, which was an anomaly, let's be honest. And we come up against somebody half decent in Wolves on Sunday, and Wolves aren't a great team. Listen, they played well. They managed the game really well. They worked the ball well in midfield. Ruben Neves absolutely consoled the game from start to finish. Is that because he's a decent footballer? Yes, but I think it's more so because we, as Everton, the Everton players, allowed them to control that game because they were absolutely fucking abysmal. The midfield was embarrassing. None of them decided to sack him down. They allowed him to walk through the midfield. He's not a particularly fast player. He's not a particularly athletic player, so we just watched them waltz through. And if you watch a player of that quality waltz through the midfield, they're going to control the game. They're going to create chances. And Wolves are a decent team. They're a decent team that'll finish somewhere between, I don't know, 10th and probably 7th, 8th this season. Mid-table sort of Premier League side, maybe pushing for the Europa Conference places, dependent on how their season ends. They're not an unbelievable side. They're not one of the best in the league. They're not one of the worst in the league. They're just a decent Premier League side. And they come to Goodison. And I think I even said in the preview that it'll be interesting this game because Wolves are a decent team. They're not a Brentford, they're not a Leeds, they're not a Boreham Wood. They're a decent team. So how will we fare against a team that are genuinely just better at us than football, regardless of whether we're playing at Goodison, whether we're playing at Molineux, or whether we're playing in the local park in front of no one? It'll be interesting to see how this squad of players deals against a team that are set up better than they are, that are work harder than they do, and that are just have better quality and more directness within their team. And we performed almost as I expected, which was, for the opening 10 or 15 minutes, we were all right. We had a little bit of a go. But these players, and something I've noticed recently, and I think the lads at Toffee TV picked up on it in the final word as well, I was watching yesterday, these players seem to lose concentration scarily quickly. In terms of the fact that there will be a plan, and Frank Lampard's alluded to this a couple of times, by the way. He's only been in the job a couple of months, and he said on a couple of occasions that we had a plan, and all of a sudden the players just sort of stopped listening to the plan and stopped working towards the plan. And you can see it visibly if you watch Everton performances. You can actually see that in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of games, we've got a plan, we're pressing high, we're working hard, we're moving the ball, we're creating the odd couple of chances, nothing really serious. It was the same on Sunday, no really big chance, but Richarlison had one in the opening 30 seconds where he flicked it up, he volleyed it, just went wide. He had another one where he hit it straight to the goalkeeper, he should have opened his body up and moved it. We had a couple where Anthony Gordon was getting in there, Damari Gray was getting in there, and we do that for about 15, 20 minutes. And then if we don't get anything out of it, i.e. a goal, i.e., we go 1-0 up or 2-0 up, the players almost sort of just get bored and think, well, fuck it, I'm not going to do it anymore. Don't want to go to that. And if you watch any Everton game, and if you watch Sunday back again, and listen, nobody wants to watch Sunday back again, and I certainly won't be watching it fully back. I've watched the highlights, but I certainly won't be watching the entire game back. But if you watch the game again, you will visibly see after 20 odd minutes, the players almost sort of just think, well, fuck it, that plan hasn't worked. Instead of just persisting with it, look at what Manchester City did against Crystal Palace yesterday. They didn't win the game, but from minute one, they persisted with the same plan. Pep Guardiola, very, very, very stubborn coach, didn't make a single substitution yesterday, and sometimes that won't work for them, i.e. yesterday. Sometimes it will work for them, i.e. when they're struggling to break a team down, but then in the 60th minute they score one, and they go on to win the game 4 or 5-0, because they persist with the same plan. These Everton players have a plan for 15 minutes, and I dare say that the plan doesn't change, because why Frank Lampard would change a plan after 15 minutes would be nonsense. However, the players, after 20 odd minutes, if they're not 1-0 up, or they haven't scored, or we haven't created, they just, or the crowd isn't massively, on at the players, they sort of just throw it out the pram, and it's like, oh no, it hasn't worked, so fuck it, we'll just stand around and watch. And that's what we saw. I actually thought we started the game relatively well. First 10-15, we weren't amazing, we weren't massively dominating the game, we weren't creating a ridiculous amount of opportunities, but we were on top, we were getting forward, we looked positive, and then all of a sudden, it just went from that to just players standing around and sort of just looking around and not moving. The lack of movement in that first half was embarrassing, and although we went in at half-time 0-0, and you could sort of say we were maybe the better team, the lack of movement in that last 15-20 minutes of that first half was an absolute disgrace. And we sit there at Goodison Park often and we're screaming at defenders because they're passing the ball back to Jordan Pickford or they're passing it sideways. But then you look at a game like that and, in the first half, there was a couple of times Mason Holgate could have played the ball into Donny van der Beek or into the midfield, and he didn't, because he's shit scared to do that, because he knows himself he's probably not good enough to play that pass without making a mistake. But the amount of times that the back line moved the ball around and there was nobody moving for them and they had to go back to Jordan Pickford was a nonsense, and you can't blame the defence for that. You've got to blame the midfield, you've got to blame the forward line for not offering anything. It's almost like when an Everton player has a ball, the rest of his teammates just almost stand there and go on, do something with that then. Do something with that. Nobody's moving off the ball. Nobody's moving into the space. Nobody's running into the areas. When Damari Gray or Anthony Gordons have got the ball, nobody's running into the back post or running on the edge of the box or dragging a defender out. Everyone just sort of stands there and goes, right, well, let's wait and see what Anthony Gordon or Damari Gray can do with this then. And then inevitably, 9 times out of 10, nothing comes of it because they're on their own and they've got no options. And then we lose the ball. We're just so disjointed. You know, these players play like a group who have never met each other before, never known each other before, you wouldn't believe that these players train together every single day, 2, 3, 4 hours a day, every single day. You would think that they turned up on a weekend and had just met each other for the first time. I've played in Sunday League teams, and again, I'm not, and this is probably no comparison, and people might say, oh, that you can't compare it to that, but I am going to compare it to that. I've played in Sunday League teams where lads have turned up and met each other on the day of the game, and they've played better than what Everton do in terms of there's been more movement, there's been more of a connection between players who don't know each other, who've only just learnt each other's names 20 minutes beforehand. But they understand football, they know where to run, they know where to move into the space, they know if one of the wingers has got the ball on the edge of the box and he's got a couple of players around him to drag a defender out to maybe go over there and give him some support. We don't do that. There's no camaraderie, there's no togetherness. You know, we sit here and talk about these players not fighting for us and not working for us and not battling for us as fans, but they're not fighting for each other. They're not working for each other. They don't seem to be asked about each other. Now, you know, and worryingly, really, really worryingly, we went 1-0 down on Sunday with 45 minutes to go. I think Conor Cody scored just after half-time, which is ample amount of time at Goodison, 49 minutes. So we had, 40 minutes to go, plus stoppage time, 45 minutes to go until the end of the game. Ample amount of time to pick our heads back up and not only get back in the game and get a point, but go on and win the game 2-3, 4-1, had we have applied ourselves in that way. But you know what was really, really worrying and really, really telling on Sunday, and one of the big reasons why I think we'll go down, and I'll say it now, I think we're gone. I honestly think we'll go down, because I just, although there might be teams worse than us all, but in terms of points, I don't think there's a single team that have got less, whose playing squad have got less determination and less desire as this Everton team have. I don't think even your Norwiches, your Watfords, I think all of those teams, their groups of players have got more determination and desire to get out of that situation than Everton have at the moment. And Sunday, as soon as Conor Cody scored that goal, was telling of this, because near enough every single Everton player, bar maybe one or two, sort of just went, yeah, that's it. Then 1-0 down now, that's it. There was no reaction. There was no shit. This is a must-win game here. We can't lose this one. Let's pick ourselves up. Let's go at them. And there's this argument, and I've spoken on it before on the channel. I think I said a couple of weeks ago that, we can't have this sort of 50-50 sort of dual match with the players of, we're not going to make an atmosphere until you show us a reason why we should make an atmosphere, because ultimately if we do that, we'll never make an atmosphere because they'll never show us a reason, and they only show us a reason to make an atmosphere when we've already made an atmosphere, if that makes sense. These players only perform when we're up for it as fans, so it's all our responsibility as fans to get up for it for these players, and it shouldn't be like that because it should be a 50-50 relationship. These players should give everything for us fans to get on top of it. It's the chicken and the egg argument, isn't it? But we know they don't, and Everton coming out and making Anthony Gordon sit in front of a camera and John Joe Kenny do an interview saying we need your support is effectively the players saying, listen, we aren't going to give a fuck unless you come and you make an atmosphere. But and it's easy saying, make Goodison horrible, let's make Goodison, let's make Goodison fearful, let's make Goodison angry, let's get screaming, let's get shouting, let's get singing, let's get this, that and the other. It's easy, me sitting here, or any, Toffee TV or Bullen's review, or anybody sitting there and saying that. But the reality is when we're walking down City Road or County Road or Goodison Road or wherever, Walton Lane, on Thursday night, in the same way as we were on Sunday afternoon, the feeling amongst Evertonians isn't can't wait to get Goodison bouncing today, can't wait to get singing, can't wait to get in the ground shouting. It's a feeling of anxiety, it's a feeling of worry, it's a feeling of stress, it's a feeling of, fucking hell, what if we lose this one as well? And you can't switch your emotions off. You can't. You simply can't get in that. And I know we sort of need to, but I can't go from waking up on Sunday morning thinking, fucking hell, imagine we lose today. This would be absolutely terrifying if we lose this game. To get into Goodison and thinking, right, I'm not worried about that. Let's just, let me sing and those emotions follow you in. And it's so difficult to try and rally a fan base up to give an atmosphere when these players are putting those types of performances in, week out. This is a two-way relationship. We don't get paid 50, 60 grand a week to go and watch Everton. We fucking should. We absolutely fucking should, but we don't. So the players coming out and saying, we need you to make an atmosphere, we need you to do this, we need you to do that. We're not the ones getting paid 50. If I got paid 50, 60 grand a week to go and watch Everton, I'd go there and I wouldn't stop fucking singing until my fucking mouth fell out. I wouldn't stop singing until my voice fucked off on the train somewhere. But I'm not getting paid 50, 60 grand a week. These players are getting paid 50, 60, 70, 80 grand a week. And they're effectively sitting there saying, well, if you're not going to come and sing, we're not going to play. That's not how it should be. They should give absolutely everything. Whether there's a 40,000 Evertonians singing or whether there's not one bastard singing, they should still give absolutely everything because it's their job. It's what they're paid to do. It's the reason they drive Lamborghinis and get told off for driving Lamborghinis too fast. It's the reason they own massive houses. It's the reason they have a luxury life. It's the reason they can go on holiday whenever they want. They can go to Dubai. They can stay in 7-star hotels. They can go to Florida. They can be friends with all of these big famous people because of the lifestyle they live. And the bare minimum is to turn up every week and give everything you can. And if you can't give everything you can, you say to the manager, I can't give everything I can here. You don't turn up and use the excuse of, well, we need the fans to get up for it. And I know, listen, we do need to make Goodison honourable on Thursday because I don't think you'll find one Evertonian out there. Please let me know if I'm wrong here. But I don't think you'll find one Evertonian out there who... And if anyone's... There's 79 people watching. If you could get the likes up, by the way, that would be amazing. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. If there's anybody watching the live comments or anybody watching the YouTube video, do you genuinely believe these players can play without that Goodison crowd behind them? Because I don't. And I think it's been proven time and time again this season. I think it's been proven in previous seasons. I don't think these players can perform unless there's 30-odd, 40-odd thousand Evertonians behind them. And they've even admitted it, let's be honest, haven't they? Coming at Anthony Gordon, coming out and saying, we need your support, we need this, is effectively him coming out and saying, listen, we can't do it without you. Simple as that, which is nonsense because they're overpaid fucking so-called footballers who should be able to perform whether we're singing or whether we're not singing. But we do have to make Goodison a bear pit on Thursday. We do. It doesn't guarantee a result. It doesn't guarantee a performance because ultimately there was a period on Sunday where the atmosphere got up. You know, as I said, we had a good, relatively good start to the game, 10-15 minutes. We were controlling the ball. We had a couple of shots. Hwang Hee-chan went down about 750 times and he went over and he apologised to the Gladys, and that got the atmosphere going up. You know, the run, whatever you may be song was going. The fans were getting on the referees' back. The fans were getting on the officials' back. The atmosphere was brewing. And what did that Everton squad do in that 10 or 15 minutes where the atmosphere was brewing? They stood still. Didn't offer no options to the defenders when they had the ball. Didn't create anything. Didn't move for Damari Gray or Anthony Gordon when they had the ball. They just stood still. And naturally, that atmosphere is going to dwindle because the players aren't giving that effort. The players aren't throwing that hard tackling. They're not making those movements. And ultimately, it's the players that will determine whether we go down or not. We can only do so much as fans, and I get it. We all want to be sitting here in May, regardless of the outcome, saying we done everything we could do. We made Goodison a bear pit every single week. We made it audible for opposition players. We made it known that our support is the best in the country. But the reality is, you still need somebody to score your goals. You still need somebody to stop you conceding goals. And I think what Sunday proved, and proved massively, was A, the failures of the January transfer window. B, that for me it is time now for the owner to sell up and go. Now there's rumours that could be on the cards. Obviously, the latest news surrounding that is that apparently Farhad Moshiri has put the Live buildings up for sale for around £90 million. Now that may just be because he wants to put them up for sale. That may indicate that there's something a little bit deeper in there. There's various other rumours that have come from very little information stating that he will be set. You know, he's wanting to sell the club, but the lava building rumour is true. But that doesn't have a direct correlation with selling Everton Football Club. But for me, as I said on Sunday, he needs to go. We're in this mess because of gross mismanagement. We're in this mess because of dreadful decision making, dreadful managerial decisions, and dreadful recruitment. And even when you look at January as a transfer window, yes, for the future, it might be a good transfer window. Mikalenko might be a great left back in a couple of years' time. Nathan Patterson might be a great right back in a couple of years' time. Dele Alli might revitalise his career next season and might be brilliant for us. But the reality is, and it is a little bit ironic, because how long have we sat here and said Everton need to buy for the future, Everton need to bring players in for the future, and stop bringing players in for the now, stop bringing 29, 30-year-olds in for the now for stupid money and plan for that. And I still agree with that, but the reality is that transfer window that has just gone, we didn't need to bring in a left back that isn't ready for the Premier League and sell one that is perfectly ready for the Premier League. I know that situation was a little bit difficult, but we didn't need to bring in a right back that is deemed not even good enough to get in the matchday squad, which is baffling for me, because I don't see a world in where, and I really don't, I don't see a world in where in where Nathan Patterson is any worse than Seamus Coleman. Seamus Coleman is dreadful, absolutely dreadful. I don't care how long he's been at the football club for. I don't care how nice of a fella he is. I don't care how how he's the captain. I'm not particularly arsed. He's not very good at football anymore. He's not very good at football. Official Keane says, have you seen Bobble's last tweet about Everton's attempt to change the mentality of players? So I'll read this out for you now while we're on this conversation. So El Bobble has just tweeted that Everton players and staff are to listen to stories, emails and calls from Everton fans ahead of the fixture against Newcastle United on Thursday night. Goodison is also to be prepared with additional flags and banners ahead of the game. Now that's great. That is great. Let's be honest, those calls and those videos will be they will be obviously vetted. So they won't be listening to calls saying, you best I'd get up for it, you lazy bunch of bastards, you've been shit recently, you're a disgrace, Willie. They'll be listening to calls from, probably kids or fans that are just trying to, give them words of advice. And it might work. It might work. And if it does work, that's absolutely brilliant. If it does work, that's great. As I said, it wouldn't be the type of calls that maybe, or the type of messages that maybe, some people would want them to hear, because Everton aren't going to allow Michael Keane to listen to a message saying you're absolutely shite and you should never play for Everton again, are they? Let's be honest. So it will be vetted, but it may help. It may, maybe if there's a couple of calls that people are emotional in, or people are clearly seeing their emotions in their face and their teary or whatever, maybe that will kick the players on. And if it doesn't kick the players on, then what fucking will? What will? If this Everton squad are going to listen to Evertonians visibly and emotionally upset and worried about the situation that we're in, and that's not going to kick them on to go and put a performance in on Thursday, then I'd rip every one of their contracts up literally as soon as the final whistle goes. Because what will? And that would show that they're not asked about the club. They're not asked about where the club are. They're only asked about themselves and the money that they're making. But as I said, let's wait and see how that goes. But the reality of the situation is that where was I before? Yeah, we're in a really, really worrying situation, and we do need to get the Goodison lively and bouncing and make it tough for Newcastle, because ultimately Newcastle are another team that could, I know they're some points clear now, and they would see themselves as out of this situation, but they could easily get dragged back in with a few bad results. And this is a pivotal game on Thursday. It really is. It's probably the most important of the season, isn't it? Let's be honest. In the grand scheme of things, it's probably the most important game of the season. But I almost look at this Everton team now and think that, Frank Lampard is, again, he tried something different the other day. He tried a 5 at the back. Again, as I said before, Nathan Patterson's still not involved in a matchday squad. I don't know why, because there's no way he can be any worse than John Joe Kenny and Seamus Coleman. Again, the failures of the January transfer window coming from the owner. We brought in a right back that isn't deemed good enough to get in over not only our number one right back, who we need to replace, but the backup right back, who 4 months ago was never going to kick a ball for Everton again. We brought in an attacking midfielder in Dele Alli who, let's be honest, we didn't need. From the time he's played at Everton, which I understand is only a short period of time, and I understand we shouldn't judge him on that, but let's be honest, he doesn't look like he's up for a relegation battle. We brought Donny van der Beek in, who can be an effective midfielder if he's used properly, but more often than not he hasn't been used properly. And we brought in El Ghazi for no reason other than to fill an agent's pockets, really, and that in itself should be a reason for Farhad Moshiri to sell a football club. But I look at this Everton team and I look back to 98, 99 season, and I was born in 98, but I wasn't around to see it then. From all the stories I've heard from my dad and from other people, Everton signed Kevin Campbell in that January transfer window and went from a team battling relegation to Kevin Campbell coming in and scoring some really, really important goals, match-winning goals, and ultimately Kevin Campbell was the reason we got out of that situation. Kevin Campbell was the reason that we stayed in the Premier League that season. And I'm not just saying this because Kev's been on the channel a couple of times, and I love Kevin. I've got a lot of time for Kev. He's a lovely fella. He's a lovely bloke. He was a fantastic footballer. He saved Everton Football Club in that season, and he's a dead nice bloke. I'm not just saying that because of this. But I almost look at this situation and think, who is going to be our Kevin Campbell? Who is going to be that player that we look at in May and go, thank God they stepped up. Thank God, will it be? Thank God Dominic Calvert-Lewin come back to fitness and stepped up. Thank God Dele Alli had, started the game and was amazing and then went on a run of scoring in 4 games on the bounce. Thank God Richarlison come to life. Thank God Anthony Gordon. Who is going to be that hero, effectively, that we look back on at the end of the season and think, thank God they, picked themselves up towards the end of the season and dragged us through this mess. Who's going to take responsibility? Who's going to step up and take accountability? Who's going to step up and drag us through this? And the reality is, do the whole team need to step up and drag us through it? Yes. Do the whole team need to step up and take responsibility? Yes. But what's the likelihood of that happening? Very, very, very slim. Very slim. Will it be Damari Gray? Will it be Solomon Rondon? I don't know. But it needs to be someone, doesn't it? Someone needs to step up and be the Kevin Campbell and save Everton and get Everton out of this situation, because again, I only see this going one way, and it's not. It's not the way of being a Premier League team next season, in my opinion, and certainly at the moment. And I understand that could change, but it's just the way you watch. If you watched Everton every week and there was fight and there was desire and there was intensity and there was grit and there was determination and we just weren't winning, then I'd look at this and go, wins will come. We will have performances, i.e. Leeds, Brentford, where we'll play teams, and that desire, that grit, that determination will be enough to get us through, and we'll win that game, and then we might win the next one, and then we'll go on and we'll have a little bit of a run. If we could take confidence from performances of players who were turning up and giving absolutely everything and working hard and giving it 100% and battling and showing that desire and commitment, then we'd sit here and go, well, okay, we mightn't be winning and we might be in a dangerous situation, but the players look like they're invested, they look like they care, they look like they want to get out of this, and therefore I think we will get out of it. But I just watch Everton at the moment and every single player just looks like they've given up. Barring 1 or 2, every other player looks like they've just given up. Looks like they've just sort of gone, yeah, this is our fate and we'll accept it. And you look at Watford and you don't get that. Watford have just beaten Southampton away, massive win. We got bounced by Southampton a couple of weeks ago. That could spell a 4-5 week spell of good results for Watford. And you look at what it did for Newcastle. They all of a sudden got 1 win and then they went 10-11 games without dropping a point. Now they're well out of the relegation zone. I know Burnley lost to Brentford, but Brentford were another team that were in and around it. That win could drag them forward. Leeds got a big win at the weekend. That could drag them forward. So, you sort of look at it and you think, where do we get that win from? But also, the teams that are around us are not only picking up points at the moment, but are also showing that grit, that desire. Leeds lost a couple of weeks ago to Villa, but it was a much better performance under Jesse Marsh, a much better performance, and I think it was Villa anyway, wasn't it? And they had, a plethora of opportunities to win that game, to pick up points in that game, and they didn't, and they lost it, and you know, at the end of the day they come out with nothing. But then the game after, they beat Norwich in a must-win game, and look at the emotion on the players' faces, on the managers' faces, and what that could do for them now. Whereas you look at these Everton players and it's the complete opposite. It's like they're feeling sorry for themselves. It's like they've accepted where they are and what will be. And it's clear the club are trying to do absolutely everything to get that mentality out by showing them videos of fans and, you know, us, because it's our football club at the end of the day, and that's why we need to make Goodison an absolute benefit every single week, because these players will come and go. And the irony is, if we do get relegated, most of this playing squad will be the knobheads that turn around and go, I'm not playing Championship football, I'm too good to play Championship football, I need to be in the Premier League. And they're the fucking idiots that have taken us down. Jamie Carragher got it right. Don't care if he's an ex-Liverpool fan, he got it right. These players are a disgrace. They're an absolute disgrace. But it's our football club at the end of the day. It's not their football club. It's not Frank Lampard's. It's not Farhad Moshiri's. It's not Bill Kenwright's. It's ours. And you know, we as fans need to be able to get to May and be able to say we done absolutely everything to get us out of this situation. And whether we do or not is ultimately up to the players. And as I said before, if that is true, what the Bobble has tweeted, and I don't see a reason for it to not be true, because he very rarely gets anything wrong, to be fair, then it would say a lot about this playing squad, and we already know a lot about this playing squad. We already know a lot of them are shit houses. We already know a lot of them are gutless. We already know a lot of them are spineless. And if any of them are listening, which they won't be, but if any of them are listening, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Prove me you're not gutless. Prove me you're not a shithouse. Prove me you're not spineless. Don't sit there and go, oh, everyone's saying I'm gutless and I'm spineless and I'm a shithouse. Prove us wrong. Turn up on Thursday and show us why you've got spine. Show us why you've got responsibility. You've got accountability. You've got desire. You've got commitment. You've got work rate. You've got passion. You've got energy. You've got an actual want to get yourselves out of this shit or eat that within. You've got, you've got that heart, that fire in your heart. Show us. I will happily sit here on Thursday evening, Friday morning, and say, how wrong was I? These players showed a lot. Well, I won't, because it'd have to be more than one result. But I'll happily sit here in May, having watched the last 9 games of the season, or 12, whatever it is, and we give everything, and there's fight, there's desire, there's commitment. I'll happily sit here in May and say, I was wrong. The players showed that fight, they showed that commitment, they showed that grit. They weren't spineless, but at this moment, you're all spineless cowards. Barring 1 or 2 of you, and you know you're all spineless, gutless, shithouse cowards. And go and show me why you're not. Go and show us all on Thursday why you're not spineless, gutless cowards. And as I said before, if players listening to messages from fans, and it won't be that message, will it? Because let's be honest, the club will vet the messages, but you know, they might get a message from an emotional kid. You know, again, I don't know, a young lad or girl who is visibly upset and emotionally upset, or even somebody of my age or above who clearly is devastated at this situation that we're in. And if that can't turn the players around, if that can't make the players think, you know what, we need to at least give everything, even if we don't get a result out of Thursday, which, by the way, I think if we give everything, we will get a result. I think we can beat Newcastle if we give it 110%. But even if we don't get a result, what I don't want to see, and what would be possibly the final nail in the coffin for pretty much every one of these Everton players, is if that tweet from Bobble to be true, and the players go out on Thursday and perform as they did for the majority of Sunday, which was head down, not enough movement, not enough care, not really being interested, giving up effectively. And yeah, this is now we are you know, we're only out of the relegation zone on goal difference. We're only out of it on goal difference, and that is, you know, we're in the middle of March. And I don't think these Everton players know how privileged they are to play for this football club, and how much somebody like me, Kieran, the Mighty Boosh, you know, Thomas, Harold, Brian, not Brian because he's a Newcastle fan. Kevin, Anthony, Dan, how much we'd give to play for Everton Football Club, to even get on that pitch, and how much we'd give if we were on that pitch. And ultimately, these players need to understand that they've got to give everything. And it'll benefit them as well. If Dominic Calvert-Lewin is thinking, I want to get out of here in the summer, I want to go to Arsenal, being relegated and going down, having scored 3 goals this season and not giving everything and not showing your design, not showing your quality, ain't going to do him much, because Arsenal look at him and go, well, you got relegated last season, and for the last however many games of the season you didn't perform. Whereas if he comes back into this squad and scores us 10, 11 goals and keeps us up, then he'll get his move in the summer. Works for Everton, we stay up, we can reevaluate in the summer, and he gets his move. If there are players that want to leave Everton and want to move on in the summer, they ain't going to be able to do that to a much better team if we go down the way in which we've been playing. It's devastating. It's absolutely devastating, and that result on Sunday and that performance on Sunday was the epitome of it, wasn't it? Really, it was just absolutely, it was gutting. It was absolutely gutting, because you just watched the team effectively give up. I mean, Connor Cody scored the header, which was awful defending and an awful marking by Ben Godfrey ultimately, but we had 40 minutes at Goodison Park to get back in that game, and they gave up. They threw the towel in. The manager got it wrong. I think he got it, the substitutions wrong. I don't know why he brought on Anzos Townsend. I'd have brought on El Ghazi there, and then even a Iwobi, I think, would have given us more than Townsend did. I wouldn't have brought on Dele Alli. I'd have brought on Alan and made it a midfield 3, and had Alan sitting in front of the defence and push Van der Beek and Doucouré up more. I just don't think the situation that we're in now, as harsh as it may be, and as difficult as it may be for Dele, because he needs, he needs to be able to show his quality and his ability. I just don't think the situation that we're in now calls for the Dele Alli. I think the way in which he plays, I think his style, I think his system, unless you're playing him, you can't bring Dele Alli on in a game that you're losing, because he's not going to make the difference. He isn't, because he's just not. I just don't think he's up for the fight. I just don't think he's up for the battle. And again, I'm not writing him off, but he was on the pitch for 5 minutes and shit out of 3 50-50s. He's not up for the battle. We shouldn't have bought him effectively in this January transfer window. He's not what we needed, and that's again shows the failures of the board and of the owner and of the people making the decisions, is because instead of going out and buying a centre half or an agile centre midfielder who could sit in front of the defence and do a job, we went out and bought an attacking midfielder we didn't really need, a winger who's never going to play we didn't really need, a right back who isn't ready, and a left back who isn't ready. Now for me, I'd have Mikalenko and Patterson in every week now, because there's no way Nathan Patterson can be any worse than Seamus Coleman. Seamus Coleman has been a disaster, by the way. A disaster. And now, whether it's his fault or not his fault, whether he loves the football club as much as any of us or not, he's been a disaster. I love Everton Football Club, but if I was playing in there week in, week out, people would say he's a disaster because I can't play footy, I'm not very good. And Seamus Coleman isn't very good anymore. Whether he was 5 or 6 years ago, the key thing with Seamus Coleman is he's never been a great defender. Whether we like it or not, he's never been a great defender. Seamus Coleman's biggest asset was that back in his earlier days, he always, he would show that he would be able to run. He was quick, he had stamina, he had ability, he had desire, he had commitment, and he was quick. So even if he got caught out defensively or positional wise, he was able to get back and make up the room. He was able to get back and make up the space. Now he has, and going forward, he was obviously fantastic going forward. Now he hasn't got any of that. Doesn't go forward. He thinks he's playing rugby most of the time. He doesn't make a forward pass. Every pass is backwards, and it's so fucking frustrating to watch him. He doesn't put crosses into the box, and defensively he's too slow now, so he just gets found out far too easily. And at the very least, what Nathan Patterson would do, he'd have that pace to cover himself. And that's what we saw a little bit with Ben Godfrey in the game on Sunday. Although, yes, he was at fault for the goal, and I understand that. There was a couple of times when he was caught a little bit out of possession, but his pace got him out of it. His pace got him away with it, because he was faster than Jimenez, or he was faster than whoever else was on the pitch in a Wolves shirt. Where if it's Michael Keane, he's still waiting for the bus now to get to the player, and it's fucking Tuesday. So sometimes in football, having a player who's quick and pacey and got a lot of stamina can get you out of situations. And I can't count on, both fans how many times Seamus Coleman had got out of situations where he was younger because of his pace and his stamina. And Nathan Patterson will be the same now. Nathan Patterson has to start. Don't give a fuck if he's ready. Don't care if he's good. He's got to start. Because John Joe Kenny's a disaster and is suspended now. As Seamus Coleman is a disaster at the moment. But let's talk about the game, I suppose, because we've been here for 40 minutes and we've barely spoken about the game. We'll get in the live comments first before we do that. 102 people watching. If you could hit the like button, it would mean a great deal to me. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. That would mean a massive amount to me. If you could leave a like, that would be great as well. Jordan says, hey Cam, what's happening, Jordan? Alex says, hi Cam, mate, hope you're good. I'm not too bad, mate. I'm not too bad. It's been a long day. It's been a long day, to be honest, but I'm alright. He says, do you think if we go down, do you think anyone will stay, e.g. Pickford, Richie, and do you think Gordon will leave? Keep up the great work on the channel. I think Gordon will stay. I do. Because I don't think that a top Premier League team would take Anthony Gordon at the moment. I think Anthony Gordon, as much as I love him and as much as I think he's great, I think he's still got a lot of work. He's got a lot of work on his final product. He's got a lot of work on his decision making in sort of the final third and in the final third of play, i.e. when he's got the ball and when he's got to make a decision, his decision making has got to be better. We love him because he's one of the only players in that team, in fact probably the only player in that team that consistently week in week out gives 110%. And that is enough at the moment for us as Evertonians to laud the player. And that is sad, isn't it, really? Because really what we should be doing is sitting here having a conversation about Anthony Gordon's end product or Anthony Gordon's decision making in the final third. Now, maybe we wouldn't have that conversation if everybody give it 110%, because maybe it would be better. I'm not going to sit here and say it's dreadful, because at the end of the day, he's the only player doing it on his own. So if everybody else was up to that standard, then maybe his decision making will be better. Maybe his end product, maybe he'd get more assists, maybe he'd get more goals. Because let's be honest, the amount of times he's got space on the wing and everybody's just fucking standing there watching, going, go ahead then, shoot from 30 yards and do something, is a nonsense. So if everybody else was up to scratch, then maybe he'd have better stats in regards to assists and goals, etc. But we should be sitting here saying, oh, Anthony needs to be a little bit better with that decision. He needs to be a little bit better. He needs to, his final ball needs to be a little bit better. His this needs to be better as that. But we're not. We're sitting here saying he's absolutely amazing because he gives everything. And that's sad, isn't it? Because every one of those players should give everything. Every one of those players should give 100% like Anthony Gordon does, should leave. Frank Lampard alluded to it after the Tottenham game. He said the only player that really gave everything was Anthony Gordon. Why? Why aren't they all giving everything? So I do think Anthony Gordon will stay, and I think Anthony Gordon's got a lot of learning to do, but he's great and I can't fault him. And if he were to go down, he would be the last player I would fault. Whether people think he's good enough quality wise or not, you simply can't fault Anthony Gordon. Richarlison, I think would probably go. I think Pickford would probably go. I think Calvert-Lewin would probably go. And I think there'd be a few cheeky players in there who would want to leave based on the fact that they believe they're Premier League footballers, despite the fact that they've gotten us in this situation in the first place. Damien says, alright, Cam, mate, I've given up hope. I'll still show my support, but may as well get used to the fact we'll be relegated. It very much feels like that, doesn't it? It very much feels like that. And look, at the end of the day, these players have got to go out on Thursday and show a reaction. And Newcastle Wolves are a good team. Wolves are a good team. Newcastle, I think, aren't a very good team. Regardless of how well they're doing at the moment, regardless of, the fact that they've shot up the table, I still stick with I don't think they're a very good team whatsoever. I think they're riding a wave. I think Eddie Howe's a good manager. I don't think he's a great manager. I've seen some people saying he's much better than what he actually is. But Newcastle are a very beatable team. They're not as solid as Wolves. They're not as, haven't got as much quality as Wolves, and they're a team that we can certainly beat on Thursday, and we have to beat. Paul says, after defeating this game, I've made peace with the fact that we're going down. You need battlers in this situation. We've got a gang of gutless frauds. Exactly, mate. This one hurts. I feel like I'm preparing for relegation, says Hernandez. Yeah. Hi, everyone, says Philip. Damien says, have you seen our up-and-coming fixtures? Can't see us getting anything from any of the games. Our chance to build some points before this stretch has been and gone now. And that's where these players have got to surprise us, isn't it? That's where Frank Lampard has got to pull something out the bag. there's a real possibility we could finish bottom unless these players wake up, says Dan. And Andy says, are you going to do a video about Mashiri potentially selling Everton? I'm probably not going to do about him potentially selling Everton because I don't think that potential is quite there at the moment. I still think it's very much sort of paper talk. Now, yes, it is a little bit, sort of interesting that he's selling the Liver buildings, but that might just literally be him selling one of his assets. It might have nothing to do with Everton Football Club, other than the fact that Everton are based, their offices are based in the Liver buildings, and one of the articles I read stated that won't change, and the tenancy agreement will still continue, and Everton will not be moving from the Liver buildings. So that mightn't have anything to do with the football club whatsoever, but it might. So we'll probably do a video when we get a chance, because obviously there's a lot of fixtures coming up at the moment. I've got a lot of stuff going on in my personal life as well, and one half of my mouth is absolutely destroyed for some reason, and I don't know why. But when we get a chance, and when there's a week where we're not playing twice, I probably will sit down and talk about the ownership, because for me it needs to change now. But anyway, let's get into the game. As I said, opening 10, 15 minutes. I think we started well. I think we were the better team. I don't think we were particularly great, but we had a couple of chances. Richarlison had one within the opening 30-odd seconds where he flicked it up and he volleyed it and it just went over. He had another one not long after where he got into a good area. He got one-on-one with the goalkeeper and he hit it at him. Now, in hindsight, should he have done better? Probably yes. In fact, definitely yes. He should have either dinked it over him or opened his body up and tried to curl it round him. Anthony Gordon was moving into good positions. The midfield were sort of holding the ball. You know, as I said, Damari Gray was finding himself on the ball, trying to create chances, trying to beat a man, not really getting anything out of it, but there was effort there. And then they had a couple of things went on in the game that I think sort of broke the play up. And I think Wolves done really, really well, and Bruno Lage done really well at breaking Everton's, I'd say momentum, but it wasn't really momentum, was it? Because we didn't have a lot of it, but just breaking Everton's sort of flow up a little bit, and that was the Hwang situation. Hwang Hee-chan should have went off the moment he went down in the first place, but he didn't. He persisted, he stayed on, he got up, he went back down, he got back up, he went back down, and that really sort of broke the play, or the sort of that little bit of momentum that we might have had, that little bit of sort of possession that we might have had. It broke it up a little bit, and as I said, the crowd then started to get on the back of the referee, started to get on the back of the linesman. He made a couple of other really, really baffling decisions. Michael Oliver, there was a couple of harsh challenges that were thrown in, one by Conor Cody in the opening 5 minutes, which should have certainly been a yellow card, especially when you look at John Joe Kenny's yellow cards that got him sent off. How Conor Cody wasn't yellow carded for that challenge is beyond me. But the crowd reacted to that. There was one decision where Wolves kicked the ball out and got the throw in themselves, which was baffling, despite the fact that they blatantly kicked it out. And another one where a Wolves player went down, they took a quick free kick, the Wolves player stayed down, they then kicked the ball out and wanted us to give the ball back. Now, on one of these situations, Anthony Gordon was about to take the throw in for Everton after the ball was kicked out, and from what it seemed in his body language and invisibly, he wasn't going to give the ball back to Wolves, because they'd carried on themselves, they'd kicked it out themselves, and it was our throw-in. And Seamus Coleman visibly went over and almost screamed at him to give the ball back. Give them the ball back, give them the ball back. And Anthony Gordon quite visibly didn't want to give the ball back, by the way. Now, for me, that's not leadership. That's not a captain of a team that is in a relegation battle that is willing to do absolutely everything to get their team out of a relegation battle. That is a captain who is more interested about being liked and being a good sportsman than actually is about the situation that we're in. What Seamus Coleman really should have been shouting at Anthony Gordon to do was carry on playing while they're expecting to give it. And I know you can say, oh, but that's sportsmanship, Cam, it's good sportsmanship. Not asked. Don't give a fuck. Wolves aren't in a relegation battle, we are. They kicked the ball out, they carried on playing. It's our throw-in, gets a fuck. We're having the throw-in, end of story. But Seamus Coleman clearly cares more about, being liked when he's in these Premier League meetings than he actually does about the situation that Everton are in, which is sad and disappointing, but, there you go. But I think those little moments of Hwang going down multiple times, the referee making those bad decisions, a couple of Wolves players throwing in really harsh challenges that were left, sort of unpunished by the referee. I think, that those situations could have gone one of two ways. They could have gone the way of Everton and the crowd getting on top of it, which we did, and the players reacting to it in a positive manner and, working even harder and digging even deeper and battling even more and then getting a goal. Or they could have gone the way of what actually happened, which was players almost throwing their toys out the pram after that point and sort of just saying, well, fuck it. We started well, but, this decision's gone against us, that decision's gone against us, so we're sort of just going to give up. And then the last 15-20 minutes of the second half, I think Wolves got into it a little bit more. Didn't really have many opportunities. Kwang obviously went off and was replaced. But they sort of, again, I think they settled into it a little bit more. They started to, and I wouldn't say console the ball, but they started to frustrate Everton more than what they were in that opening 10 minutes. They calmed it down, and that was when the route one started to creep in from an Everton point of view. And by that route one, what I mean is that was when you started to see players standing round and not really making movements, not really moving into areas, not really moving into space, not really moving for each other, not really opening up areas on the pitch, not really dragging defenders out, just sort of standing there and going, right, you've got the ball, so let's wait and see what you do now. Someone's setting fireworks off. It's March and somebody's setting fireworks off outside my house. You're a bit premature, aren't you, mate? Fucking hell. 8 months premature. And they're setting fireworks off. Disaster, that, mate. Have Man United gone 1-0 down or something? Because it's probably Liverpool fans setting fireworks off. But yeah, as I said, we get to half time, and I was really disappointed with that last 10-15 minutes of the second half, the first half, because we just we seemed to give up. The plan of getting forward and controlling the ball sort of just went out the window, and every time the defence had the ball, it was very much just everybody was standing and waiting for something to happen rather than moving, and that led to, your typical Mason Holgate chipped ball up to nobody, which Connor Cody or then Donker dealt with, and then Wolves come forward, and it was a really frustrating end to the half. And then obviously we come out for the second half, and you're looking for Everton to just settle it down. You're looking for Everton to just show a little bit of grit, show a little bit of fight. You're looking for the team talk from Frank Lampard to be, right, you're still in this. Obviously it's 0-0. Go out and for that opening 10-15 minutes of the second half, make it hard for them, press them high, work them hard, create, and the crowd will get behind you. And that's all this Everton team needs to do, and that's all they need to do in any game. In the first 10 or 15 minutes of a first half or a second half, give everything you've got. And us as fans will get on top of that and we'll get behind it. And then we'll drag you through the rest of the game, through the atmosphere, because that's all the players say. All the fans drag us through with the atmosphere, with the sound. You give us 10 or 15 minutes of giving 110%, and we'll give you the rest of it. But that's not what they do they? They give up, they throw the toys out the pram, etc, etc. Anyway, we get in the second half. Within 4 minutes of the second half, cross doesn't get stopped. Ball comes in, gets cleared, comes back in. Connor Cody's left on his own. Nowhere to be seen. Ben Goffey's nowhere to be seen. Mason Holgate nowhere to be seen. He jumps up, he heads it. Open goal, 1-0. And I actually thought Connor Cody was man of the match. And what did they sit here and say on Friday, by the way? Did they not sit here and say Connor Cody would be ideal for Everton? Yes, he's a cop-out. Yes, he's a Liverpool fan, etc, etc. And technically he's not a great defender. He's not a great technical footballer. But what he is he does the simple things really, really well. And he's a leader. And there's two things that we're missing. Is a centre-half that does the simple things really, really well, and a leader. Connor Cody would be perfect at Everton at the moment. And he was man of the match for them on Sunday. He would be exactly what we need. And if not Connor Cody, because he's a Liverpool fan or whatever, somebody like Connor Cody, i.e. somebody that isn't particularly pretty, isn't somebody you look at and go, best centre-half in the world in, but just somebody that does the basics really, really well and is a leader. And that's what Connor Cody was. He led his team. He led them to the win on Sunday. He gets the goal, and I think the worst thing about this at the moment is within the there's a saying or a thing which is like the stages of sort of getting over your problems or whatever it may be, recovery or whatever, and the final stage is acceptance. And earlier stages are denial and stress and worry and pressure, and the final stage is acceptance. And I feel like a lot of Blues at the moment are at this final stage of acceptance of the fate. And I think when that goal went in, I think every little, and there wasn't a lot of atmosphere at the time, but every little bit of atmosphere that was within Goodison Park was just shaken out of it. It literally just disintegrated. It was like on the Avengers when Thor clicks his fingers. Any little bit of atmosphere that was there, that was brewing from the first half, just went gone. Because I think every single, or certainly most, of those Evertonians inside of Goodison, including myself, had this acceptance of we're not going to be a Premier League team next season, are we? But also, and more so, in terms of the there and then, I think a lot of us had this acceptance of, right, that's this game lost. Because we just don't get back into games. We haven't scored a goal in a Premier League game for 3 games? 3 Premier League games without a goal, very few shots on target, and 2 shots on target in however many games. And 3 Premier League wins since September. And I think that is the real sort of sad thing, is that goal went in with 40 minutes to go. 40 minutes to go. Not even enough time to get an equaliser, enough time to go and win the game comfortably. Had these players had applied themselves a bit better, had Frank Lampard have made a bit better decisions in terms of his substitutions, I'd have made a substitution the second we conceded, and it wouldn't have been Dele Alli and it wouldn't have been Andros Townsend. If you were going to bring a winger on, I think, why not give El Ghazi a go? He's something different. He's something they wouldn't have been expecting. He's something they wouldn't have necessarily been able to plan with. And he would be a player coming on with a bit of a point to prove. And if you're going to bring a midfielder on, I understand why Dele Alli makes sense in terms of he's an attacker and he's more likely to score a goal or create a chance than Alan. But let's be honest, his desire and work rate and his ability to control a midfield is much less effective than what Alan's is. And at that time, we just needed somebody to come on and control a midfield. Because that's what all Wolves did. As soon as they scored, they just controlled the ball. Ruben Neves controlled the ball. They continued to create chances. They didn't have many chances after it, but they continued to create chances. And they controlled the game from that point on. And you were sort of expect them, Everton in a way, to, maybe go on and, I don't know, give a little bit of effort, give a little bit of desire, give a little bit of commitment, and maybe go and, get an equaliser or, a winner or whatever, and it wasn't. It was just Wolves completely controlled the game. They completely sorted out. They had the more possession. They worked it well. They weren't in under any rush because they were already winning the game. And our players just gave up, threw the towel in, gave up, and that was that. And that is such a worry, because there was, whether you agree with it or not, whether you like it or not, for me there was a clear gulp of just sort of acceptance of the situation that we're in and the likelihood of our fate. Certainly at this time, and I think not only from the fans but the players as well, and that's even more worrying, because the players are supposed to be the players that believe we'll get out of this. The players are supposed to be the people that believe that this will be all right and that we'll be okay. The manager still believes that we'll get out of it. The manager still believes that that we'll be fine, and yet we do that as soon as they score, and yeah, not much else to really talk about for the second half, was it really? They controlled the game, they sorted out, they moved the ball well, we just allowed them to play it round in the midfield, we allowed them to work it round, we allowed them to move the ball well, and they saw the game out and it ended 1-0, and It's another game of football that Everton have ultimately lost. It's another game of football that Everton have ultimately allowed pass them by without getting anything out of it. And how many more of these can we put up with? How many more of these can we realistically cope with before, before we either get a win or just sort of, as I said, it goes too far and we end up mathematically down. I just don't know. I just don't know, and it piles even more pressure on Thursday's game. And Thursday's game is now an absolute must-win of all must-wins. As I said, biggest game of the season. Absolute biggest game of the season. We can't afford to come out with anything less than 3 points. Whether we do or not is a different question. We'll be back with the game preview to that game tomorrow, so don't forget to look out for that one. But this is such a big game now, and that is because of what a disaster Sunday was again. And as I said, it's nothing unusual, is it? It's nothing unusual, but yeah, there you go. Look, we are going to finish it up there then. I do apologise about the lack of involvement in the live comments today, but my mouth is absolutely killing. Hernandez says, before you end the stream, are you doing a match preview with the Newcastle fan channel as Steve the Legend requested? If so, what channel is it so we can go support there and have your back? I will be doing a video with Steve tomorrow. It'll be round about 9:30ish on his channel. I can't remember off the top of my head what his channel's called, but what I'll do is I'll be doing our preview beforehand. So during our preview, which will be around 5-6 o'clock-ish, 4-5 o'clock-ish, I will get his channel up and I'll pin the comments in the live comments, mate, so everyone can go over and subscribe, because he's over in America, Steve. So around about 9:30 tomorrow evening, we'll be doing a preview over there. So don't forget to come over and check Steve's channel out. He's absolutely amazing. We were meant to be doing the video today, but unfortunately, because I was working late, I had to move it to tomorrow. But we will be doing one tomorrow. And Keaton says, "Great, Steve. Come, thank you very much." As I said, sorry about the lack of involvement in the live comments. My mouth is absolutely in agony, so I'm gonna go and sit down, not talk, get some more painkillers and rest it up, and I'm gonna call the emergency dentist tomorrow because I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I've been punched in the face by about 400 lions. There you go. Anyway, big thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Another defeat for Frank Lampard's Everton team. Where do we go from here? Who will be our hero? Who will be our saviour? Who will be our Kevin Campbell? Who will turn up and, get us out of this situation? I don't know, but let's hope we have an answer on Thursday. Massive thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this one, leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Big thank you all for watching, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.